Are you unknowingly breaking U.S. immigration laws by being a digital nomad or by participating in the wrong activities on a tourist visa? If so, you might be one innocent mistake away from getting detained or deported. Today's video is a wake-up call for every international traveler, digital nomad, or backpacker. Hi, I'm Christine of Girl Traveler. I take you inside my solo travel and food adventures so that you can find confidence too. Recent cases like Rebecca Burke and the two German backpackers who were detained and deported at the US border show how easy it is to make a travel mistake that gets you banned from entering a country. In this video, I'm breaking down the most common travel mistakes travelers have made that have gotten them flagged, detained, and worse when entering the US. But honestly, these mistakes can get you in trouble in many countries. I'm going to explain exactly what went wrong, what you need to know, and the 5 mistakes to avoid so this never happens to you. On March 18th of this year, 2 female German backpackers, 18 and 19 years old, arrived in Honolulu, planning a 5-week adventure. Instead, they were denied entry, detained by the U.S. Customs and Border Protection, held overnight in a federal facility, aka a prison, strip-searched, and deported the next day. U.S. officials thought they were planning to work illegally, even though they came in under the visa waiver program. Their flexible plans, few accommodation bookings, and mention of freelance work raised red flags. When the story broke, it felt both shocking and personal because it happened in Hawaii. So I wanted to know what went wrong to cause something this extreme. Watch to the very end of this video and check out number 4, which is the biggest one to avoid. When the female German backpacker story broke, it happened in mid-March, but it wasn't the first or only case like it. Welsh backpacker Rebecca Burke, age 28, was detained at the Canadian-US border on February 26th and held for 19 days, which is very extreme. She had a tourist visa and was part of a workaway program staying with locals in exchange for light chores. Workaway promotes itself as being a cultural exchange, volunteering, or house-sitting program. But here's where it gets tricky. When Burke entered Canada, she mentioned her workaway experience. Canadian officials decided that her activities counted as work, and she didn't have a proper work visa. So they sent her back to the US, where she had done the very same thing, and that raised a red flag for US border agents. So mistake number 1 is having the wrong visa for your activities. In some countries, even unpaid work, like doing chores in exchange for a free stay, can legally count as work because immigration sees it as you getting something of value. Burke had done this workaway program before under a tourist visa, and maybe those countries didn't ask her questions or they saw these activities as tourism. But this time, she entered 2 countries with stricter definitions of what counts as work, and she got flagged. Most countries see vacationing and work as 2 completely different things. If you're working, they might think you're taking jobs away from locals, planning to stay longer than allowed, or avoiding taxes. That breaks the rules of a tourist visa. Workaway didn't say what type of visa Burke needed because it depends on the country and what you plan to do. It's up to you, the traveler, to research and apply for the right visa. If you accidentally fall into the wrong visa category, even without meaning to, you could get into serious trouble. It's worthwhile to understand the different visa categories of any country you're entering. When I took my yoga teacher program in India, I was told to never say that I was a student because it pertains to those who are coming into the country strictly for college or university study. A student visa was not a recreational type of study. Some travel content creators feel like they are journalists due to their blog, but in some countries, that requires a special work visa and can have political ramifications. This is an easy mistake that anyone could make. Honestly, it was a wake-up call for me too. I felt like I could make the same mistake because it puts well-meaning programs like house sitting, pet sitting, and woofing, stuff that budget travelers see as cultural exchange, into a gray area that requires real visa research. Mistake number 2, lack of both documentation and onward travel. Not having a full trip itinerary or proof of accommodation isn't technically a visa violation, but it can make immigration officers suspicious. In the German girls' case, they told a German magazine, "We arrived in Honolulu from New Zealand planning to explore the islands, then fly to the mainland. We'd only booked 2 nights in an Airbnb so we could stay flexible like we did in New Zealand. We had an onward ticket to Asia, but no U.S. flights booked." So the girls had valid ESTA approvals under the visa waiver program, but when CBP officers pulled them aside, those flexible plans likely raised the first red flag because they were planning to stay 5 weeks in the U.S., in Hawaii. but only booked the first 2 nights. That doesn't look very great because Hawaii is a very expensive vacation destination. If you're planning to stay at hotels, the average can be anywhere from $300 to $400 a night. And Hawaii's not really known for having a lot of budget hotel or accommodation options. To add to that, they were arriving during peak season. So how are they going to afford 5 weeks staying in Hawaii? Another red flag was that they didn't have proof of where they were going after the US. Proof of onward travel means showing a flight or booking that proves that you'll be leaving the country before your visa ends. It shows immigration that you won't overstay your visa. Immigration doesn't care if you're being spontaneous. They want to see if you're a real tourist. The girls only had a ticket leaving Asia, not leaving the US or going back to Germany. Mistake number 3 is improvising your travel plans at the border. The girls later admitted that they thought about booking dummy tickets or printing travel plans, but then at the last minute decided not to. And improvising at the border or on your visa application is not a strategy. When you're backpacking, you get used to traveling without a plan. I totally get what they were trying to do. Sometimes you want to decide your next move once you've already landed in your destination, and I've done that plenty of times myself. But immigration and visas, that's one area I never wing. Even if my travel plans are wide open, I still take those 2 things very seriously. My trip depends on it. You're dealing with another country's government. You can't just explain your way out of it. You either followed the rules or you didn't. You could be denied entry, banned from the country for 5 years, or deported. When this story hit, a lot of Americans were already upset about the crackdown on immigration and the constant deportations. This got swept into that narrative. One of the girls later wrote in a post, they wanted to send us back to Auckland on the next flight, but we asked to rebook our tickets for the next day so we could continue our travels. They agreed, but said we'd be detained overnight. We thought that we'd just wait in the same room where they interviewed us, but no. So the CBP Hawaii actually honored the request to rebook their flights to Japan. They didn't have to. It's my understanding that if you are denied entry into a country, you're usually sent back on the next flight to the country you just came from. That's why the airlines check your visas before you board, because they're actually responsible for you. The overnight prison stay and the strip search could have been avoided if the girls had gotten on the flight back to Auckland. Since the flight wasn't until the next day, they had to stay overnight in federal custody. The nearest holding facility that met federal standards happened to be a prison. And that's why they were strip searched and held overnight. It's standard for anyone going into the prison system. Strip searches and prison stays are not an automatic punishment. They're part of the federal holding and detainment process. Could this happen to you or me? Yes. I've done long-term backpacking trips with open-ended plans, but immigration doesn't care about your spontaneity. They care about your documentation and whether you plan to work or overstay. If you want tips on how to book onward tickets, refundable hotel stays, or itineraries for immigration purposes, I've written a detailed guide. It answers your questions and shares tools that I use. Link in the description box below. Check it out before your next trip. The next mistake is for digital nomads and creators, and you won't like hearing this. Mistake number 4, admitting to remote work or freelancing without the right visa. The girls admitted that they sometimes did freelance gigs for clients in Germany and Asia. That admission pretty much sealed their fate because officers then searched into their phones and found emails referencing that work and saw it as a sign that they planned to work while in the US. And even I didn't know this part, is that immigration doesn't care where your clients are located. They care where you are physically at when you are working. So even if you're working for a foreign company in another country, if you're doing it from inside the US on a tourist visa, it's a violation. If you are working on a laptop going from country to country, you could be breaking immigration laws and not even realizing it. Creators and digital nomads are proudly shouting their lifestyle at the border without realizing that it could be violating immigration laws. Old work visas needed local sponsorship. New online businesses don't fit that model. That's why countries like Thailand, Bali, Taiwan, Croatia are now offering digital nomad visas. There are special visas that let you know that it's okay to work online in that country legally. It'll be interesting moving forward to see how this all evolves. There's still a lot of gray area with remote online work and content creator work. Check out my blog post on how to be a digital nomad, where I link to digital nomad visa sites if you're interested in working remotely. The fifth mistake I see travelers making at immigration is going into immigration unprepared. Most travelers don't prepare for this part of their trip, don't know what to expect, and end up oversharing out of nervousness, a false sense of honesty, or trying to be overly helpful. But immigration officers aren't your friends. They're trained to spot anything that doesn't fit their tourist profile. If you give too much information, you hand them reasons to dig deeper. That's what happened to the German girls. They were just unprepared. When asked about their work, they talked about past freelance gigs and their flexible travel style. They thought being honest would help. Instead, it gave the CBP the details they needed to flag them. The key to getting through immigration smoothly at any border is to be prepared with ideas of what they'll be asking and keep your answers short, truthful, and only what's asked. Don't volunteer extra details unless you're 100% sure that they align with your visa type and won't be misinterpreted. Also, questions like, what do you do for work? Immigration isn't asking because they're curious, they're assessing risk. If your visa doesn't align perfectly with your situation, even harmless details can trigger phone searches or deeper questioning. U.S. border agents can search your phone, ask for your passwords, or review your social media accounts. You have to fit the profile, but it's legal. And if they find something they interpret as you're planning to work or you have anti-government sentiments, you could be deported, even if you had no bad intentions. U.S. citizens don't need to comply with this, and they must be allowed entry, but failure to comply may keep you held up and detained for hours with your electronics eventually confiscated. Keep in mind, U.S. travelers, green card holders, dual citizens, and creators have been encountering more invasive questioning as much as online income, their political beliefs, and family citizenship status when returning into the U.S. It's just getting crazier. That's why some travelers go as far as getting burner phones, deleting business chats, and cleaning social media accounts before crossing the borders. If you want to know more on how to protect your digital privacy while traveling, watch my video and check out my blog post where I break it all down, linked in the description box. These girls' story, it definitely shook me as a traveler because it could have happened to me or you. These girls didn't set out to break the law. They were naive, and even in the end, they still didn't quite understand what they did wrong. It's a powerful reminder for all of us. Immigration is not about good intentions, it's about protocol. If you trip a red flag, that's it. Game is over. Take your travels seriously. Know what to say at immigration borders. Know what you need for your documentation. Don't assume that your travel style makes sense to immigration because it usually doesn't. And remember to check out my blog post in the description box for actionable tips to protect yourself at immigration. If you found this video helpful, hit like and subscribe. Have you ever had a scary immigration experience? Drop it in the comments below. And if this helped you, share it with a friend who's planning a trip. Travel safe, smart, and informed. May the GRRR be with you.